I think we'll start the meeting now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to West Yorkshire Fire Authority meeting. Are we going live? Are we live yet?
Chair, I think Luke's sorting that out, so let's assume that we are. I think for members' information, we'll assume that we're now broadcasting to the public.
All right, that's fine. Okay, welcome to West Yorkshire Fire Authority first live meeting, HR meeting. Good morning to everyone. We have no apologies. Minutes of the last meeting, page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Any comments? So I'll take that as a yes. Fine. Page 2, matters arising. There isn't any. 3, urgent items. There isn't any. And 4, admission to the public. No items either. Page 5, declaration of interest. Has anyone have any? Okay, I take that as a no. Now we're moving on to the minutes, to the actual items agenda. Page 7, Local Pension Board Annual Report for 2019 to 2020. Item 6. Who's taking that one? Is it? Oh, Nicola.
Chair, it was Nikki's report. I don't know whether Michael's going to speak in Nikki's absence or whether he wants me to say a few words about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, are you talking about the pension board?
Yes.
Yes.
Nikki's not here this morning, Michael.
Yes, Chair. The authority, as you know, because you were there, approved the recommended proposals.
Yes.
So it's been implemented within the Constitution.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, this is the annual report which seeks to give members assurance that the pension board has actually acted in accord with its terms of reference, and Nikki's provided a summary report of its activity throughout the last year. I suppose I'm the only officer that's probably been present at all the meetings. So if members have got any questions on the activity of the local pension board, then I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15 and page 16. Any questions?
Can we move the report?
Yes, that's yes. So the report is moved. Thank you. Now we go on to page. Now we go on to page 17. Human Resource Activity Report. Agenda item 7.
Would you like me to pick this up, Ian?
Yes, please,
Joanne.
Okay, so if you've got the report in front of you, I'm just going to go through some of the main points. So I'll start with section 1, which is the staff profile. The staff profile overall is a fairly static picture, but I'd just like to draw your attention to the table that's headed up retained and on call. I'd just like to bring to your attention that we have now recruited an extra 15 employees. If you look at the total staff, it's 155 compared to the same time last year, which was 140. And the point I want to make on that is that some of the targeted recruitment work that we've been doing for on-call stations has started to come into fruition. So that's quite a positive picture. And I'll just draw your attention to section 2, which is the sickness absence. And you can see for March 20, sickness absence is considerably higher. And I think you can see there that the effects of COVID have started to come through at this point, with employees either booking sick themselves or self-isolating or shielding. And I think that's a picture that we'll see for some considerable months to come on the next report. Moving down then around sickness generally, major causes. Sickness absence overall is continuing to reduce year on year, which is a positive. And the main reason for absence continues to be musculoskeletal, followed by mental health.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, to continue. I just heard some noise. Okay.
Can people turn to mute your buttons, please?
I'm just looking at this, and just in terms of the demographic breakdown, I can't see that we've done much in our effort to kind of make this service more diverse. I know that we were trying to use recruitment as a way of doing that. Is there a reason that we've not done more, and it sort of seems to be kind of largely white male? I think there's one extra female.
Do you want me to respond to that?
You can do.
Yes.
I'm starting to hear, Ian.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Fenton Glynn, I think the issue is that over the last 18 months, we haven't done any firefighter recruitment other than for retained firefighters. So the last campaign that we carried out gave us sufficient firefighters for 3 courses, which are now exhausted. And the next round of firefighter recruitment is due to start in October. Now, in the lead up to that, we've got a very detailed positive action plan that's in place, and an officer appointed that's leading on the implementation of that plan. The last round of recruitment that we did showed some improvement in the number of both female and BME recruits, but it was very small numbers. And of course, when you're looking at a workforce or an operational workforce of nearly 1,000 staff, it is going to take quite a long time for even with effective diverse recruitment to start to show through really in the overall demographics. The issue that we have in terms of retained recruitment is that as a condition of being a retained firefighter, you have to you have to live within 5 minutes of the retained station. So the demographics of retained firefighters to a large extent is dictated by the demographics of people living within the immediate vicinity of the station, and the vast majority of our retained stations are in areas where the communities aren't that diverse, in all honesty. So we hope come October, when we get into our next round of recruitment, we'll be able to continue to make progress in this area, but it isn't something that's going to change overnight.
Okay, Councillor Hunt, you were wanting to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was on the section just a little earlier with regard to the sickness, and it was mentioned that we would see an obvious increase because of COVID. Do we have actually any numbers on the employees that have been ill? Because it's just in a percentage form at the moment.
Joanne, do you want me to pick that one up again? Because I've got the COVID spreadsheet in front of me.
Fabulous, yeah.
The planning assumptions that we made for COVID were that at any one time at the peak of the virus, we could expect up to 20% of our workforce to be absent. That would have meant absentees in the region of 250 staff at any one time. As hopefully members will know, we put a lot of mitigations in place to try and minimise the impact of COVID, and that's actually been relatively successful. So at the peak of the virus, I'm just looking back through the spreadsheet, the most people that we had off due to coronavirus was in total 117 staff, so less than half of our planning assumption, and that was for only a very short time. As we sit here today, the current figures are we've got 26 people currently absent due to COVID symptoms or self-isolating. 2 are actually exhibiting COVID symptoms and are being referred for tests. 24 are in self-isolation, but we are in the process at the moment, in line with the government guidance, of bringing those people back to work. But we recognise that for some people who've been self-isolating or shielding for a significant time, this is obviously quite a sensitive issue for them. For the majority of staff, for non-operational staff at least, they will continue to work from home. So we've got very few staff actually working in the office. And we're trying to handle that as sensitively as possible. The latest government guidance, as members will probably be aware, suggests that shielding will be paused at the end of July from the 1st of August. So we're working through that at the moment. But whilst we're trying to get as many operational firefighters back into the workplace as we can, we've got very detailed health and safety guidance to try and protect those individuals as far as we can. And as I said earlier, the vast majority of office-based staff are working remotely now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, continuing through the report then, can I just highlight or draw your attention to section 4, which is looking at health and safety performance, which continues to perform extremely well against targets. Section 5 is just a summary of referrals to occupational health and just showing that they've met all the key performance indicator targets. Section 6, discipline and grievance cases. In terms of disciplinary within the period, we had 2 disciplinaries, one which is ongoing, one which is now complete, and we had 8 grievance cases, 6 of which are now complete, and 6 are now complete, 2 are ongoing. You will see that there are some red shading in those boxes, which means that we haven't met our targets in terms of timescales. There are lots of different reasons for that occurring. Sometimes employees go off sick, etc. But I do concede that there is some room for improvement in terms of how managers are dealing with these cases and trying to improve in terms of meeting our own targets. Section 7 is a summary of recruitment over the period, and I'm pleased to report that we've performed very well in terms of our recruitment, meeting all our own timescales and our targets. And they're the main points of the report that I just wanted to draw to your attention, unless there's any questions.
Councillor Tully.
I think just on a general situation regarding the disciplinary, I think the quicker or the more speedy we can deal with it and get it sorted out is better for all concerned, because I've just dealt with one away from here that, you know, somebody was suspended in February. We've had the hearing in June. And when we got there, there wasn't a great deal of case to be answered for. And it's a long time for this particular person to be worried and to be stressed and worried about potential loss of income, loss of livelihood. So I do welcome the fact that whatever we can do, we can make sure that, everything's put into place, that we get these dealt with as speedily as possible. And I think it suits both parties.
Yeah, do agree. Yeah, thank you.
Chair, it's perhaps just worth saying for members' information on recruitment, one of the unintended consequences of COVID is a real escalation in interest in working in the public sector. What we have noticed with recent adverts is that the number of applicants we're now getting for jobs has multiplied several-fold, but because of the state of the economy, really. Joanne, you were telling me yesterday, our admin assistant in HR, how many applicants did we receive?
238, which it's unknown. It's unprecedented, really, that.
So I think it's just a reflection on, given the difficult times that people have gone through, they do recognise now that there are a lot of advantages of working in the public sector, and we have got a number of vacancies, particularly in fire protection and prevention at the moment. So it will be a good time really for us to get those adverts out there and hopefully attract some really good candidates.
Any more comments?
Yes, Chair.
Oh, thank you.
If I can take you back to page 21, the section on mental health, I know that we've managed to get our numbers down. I'm just a little bit concerned with the pandemic that's happening, that there is going to be a rise in mental health issues, not just related to firefighting and what firefighters have to go through, but other things that will come into it. And I hope that we're able to keep those numbers down.
Yes, we're very much aware of that, and as part of the recovery group, there is actually a subgroup that are looking just at that very issue, mental health. So they're coming up with some really clear guidance for managers on how to deal with any mental health issues that are coming out of COVID. Obviously, there are anxieties attached to people being isolated at home, but also anxieties about coming back into the workplace. So yes, it's something that we're very much aware of and we're looking at really closely.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Right then, I guess that's a no. Let's move on to page 25.
Chair, I'd like to take that if I may. Ian Stone.
Yes, staff survey.
Yes. Just in terms of the purpose of the report is to update on progress following the 2019 survey and also to update on actions arising from the survey before that and to share an organisational action plan in response to the survey. For recommendations, it's recommended that the report is noted. Just quick trip through the report really. So in summary, it was a much improved picture. Certainly if we go back to the first staff survey that was conducted in 2016 and compare results across all three, there's a significantly improved picture in terms of employee engagement, which is great to see. The latest 5 areas to consider are actually very similar to the ones from previous surveys. So although there have been improvements, those are still our areas of further development. Those areas are change management, how people handle and understand the need for change, bureaucracy, not really a surprise there, but people particularly find some processes overly laborious, although it's fair to say that more recent information as a direct result of the work that's been put in during the pandemic has significantly altered that picture. Being fairly paid, feeling valued, so how people feel they're praised and recognised for the work that they do, and the personal development review process, so how we talk to people about their ongoing performance and how we develop them going forward. So those are the 5 themes from the staff survey. We've delivered a number of focus groups both across the 2017-18 staff survey and more recently for the 2019 staff survey, just to kind of sense check that information and to identify some areas, some suggestions really of how we can take that forward. It's really important that we get staff involvement in the solutions to some of those areas of development, and we've taken action to make sure that that is delivered. If I can take you across to page 26, just again by way of introduction, those 5 themes there are identified within the report, and that's been developed using survey data itself, the employee comments from staff engagement activities, district conversations, and focus groups held to help illustrate the current organisational culture and to provide insights into the next steps in our journey. 1.7 in the report, 86% is a very high engagement score. And when we look at benchmarking across ourselves and other organisations, we're significantly better than the private sector, and the only organisation that sort of outstrips us in terms of engagement is the higher education sector. So that again is really pleasing to see that people who work for West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service feel a sense of belonging and feel engaged with the work and the environment in which they work. So if I may, I'll take any questions at this point. I don't propose going through the report in great detail, but if anybody has any questions, both in terms of the report and the action plans, I'm happy to take those now.
Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Jenkins.
Unmuted. Okay, on page 32 about the employee newsletter, I did ask if we could have a look at the employee newsletter, and perhaps it could be shared around and we could see what efforts are being made to communicate.
Yes, an action has been forwarded to our communications lead, who will be forwarding copies of those. More recent communication has primarily been done as podcasts, and that's as a direct result of the pandemic and people working differently and working remotely. However, that is definitely got some incredibly good outcomes in terms of people engaging with that. So yes, that is an action that has been taken by the communications team, and we'll make sure that you get that information as soon as possible.
Chair, perhaps on the theme of communication as well, seeing as Councillor Jenkins raised it, it might just be worth saying that over the period of the pandemic, there's lots of work being undertaken in terms of using technology to communicate. The chief and the senior management team have conducted, I think, 2 staff briefing sessions overall. Well, actually, it's six sessions covering all our staff. So we've actually done briefing sessions that's touched around about 400 staff each time, which has been a specific question and answer session for all our staff. The numbers that have attended are a bit difficult because when a fire station logs on, they usually log on as one watch. So we only see them as one. But we've really worked hard on the communication side of things through the pandemic, and the comms team did a pulse survey relatively recently just to see how staff are feeling through the pandemic. And certainly the way that the organisation has communicated was very highly rated by the staff, obviously in very difficult circumstances. So we're continuing to learn about how to communicate best through these difficult times, but I think we are making some real progress in those areas.
Thank you. Councillor Jenkins, you still have your hand up. You want to ask another question?
Yeah. I'm sorry. No, okay. So the only other thing to say is that just to drill down on the 14% who weren't as happy, and maybe there's things to be learned from those people.
Yeah, completely. It's important, obviously, that we have an awareness of the number of employees who are engaged and who are happy at work, but equally it's important to understand those who are not happy, why that is. There are as many reasons as there are people, really, but those five themes, those five developmental themes, are consistent among staff who are less engaged. So as Mr. Bramwood identified earlier, the amount of work that's been done around communication is phenomenal, and the reach that those communications have had has been extraordinary. So that in and of itself is helping to reach those less engaged staff and to really help them to reconnect with the reason they joined the organisation in the first place. So yeah, much more to do, but we are making progress.
All right, thank you. Any more questions? Right. Let's move on then to page 63. Agenda item 9, pension scheme dispute update. Ian?
Sorry, Chair, I forgot to unmute my microphone. I was talking away to myself there. The reason I brought this report, Chair, is just to update members on what is one of the key strategic issues that's facing the authority at the moment. Members may be aware that following a long-standing dispute, the FBU issued proceedings in the Employment Tribunal, which disputed the lawfulness of the changes that were made to the firefighters' pension schemes back in 2015. The claims that were made concerned the issue of whether the transitional protection arrangements in the schemes were discriminatory on the basis of age. In December 2018, the Court of Appeal found that the transitional protection arrangements did unlawfully discriminate on the grounds of age, and the case was returned to the Employment Tribunal, therefore, to determine remedy. The Employment Tribunal has met once, to my knowledge, and it's made an interim order regarding these matters. The interim order said basically that anyone that was affected by these changes should be treated as if they remained within the 1992 pension scheme. And the order anticipated that the final determination about the level of remedy would be resolved around mid-July this year, and I'll come back to that in a moment. It's been very difficult for fire and rescue authorities to comply with the provision of the orders because we really need some guidance from the Home Office to advise us as to how best to implement the decision. And in 2.5, I've identified the issues there that we need guidance on. I think the most difficult issue is around the tax treatment of any benefits that employees may receive. Pending that guidance, the Local Government Association have advised fire and rescue authorities that they should take no immediate steps to change the way that they deal with pensions, and so people that are currently retiring are being dealt with as if they retire under the 2015 scheme, and there'll be a huge piece of work to do once remedy is determined to look at what detriment they've suffered and how we're going to remedy that for those retirees in due course. Alison and I have had a look at the financial implications of this, and I think it's probably fair to say that we are hoping and assuming that the government will pick up the bulk of the costs associated with this discrimination case through the pension grant that we receive, but the costs are likely to be extremely significant. I think we've identified in 3.2 of the report that the costs based on our current estimates, could be around £10 million to the authority. And that doesn't include any costs that may be associated with injury to feelings that we know the FBU are currently formulating, and this could be a further £2 million in due course. So clearly, if that was left to the fire authority to pick up, that would be a really significant cost for us. But we're not anticipating that at this moment in time. In terms of the timescales, I mentioned that it was hoped that the final remedy would be determined by July this year. We did receive correspondence only this week to say that the date that had been put aside for the employment tribunals to look at this, which was the 17th of July, has now been vacated, so it won't happen on that day. That's been vacated because the Employment Appeal Tribunal has to consider at the moment whether individual fire authorities are liable for the discrimination, or whether it is in fact the government, and fire authorities are arguing that we're implementing legislation, so we shouldn't be liable for the discrimination that has followed. Most commentators now are suggesting that probably these issues won't be resolved until maybe as long as 2022 or 2023, which seems a heck of a long time, but we've got to wait for the legal processes to take place. I think once that's happened, there will be a very significant burden on the authority in any event, and we're already anticipating having to provide some additional administrative support to our pension scheme to allow us to deal with these claims as and when we're able to. So that's really a summary of the situation, Chair, presented for no other reason than to keep members in the picture with what is a really significant issue for the authority going forward. But if members have any questions, then I'll do my best to answer. I don't know whether Michael wants to add anything regarding the current legal situation generally, or whether he feels I've covered that adequately.
Chair, well, I mean, Ian has given you a comprehensive background to the dispute. Just to reinforce what he said, the position of fire authorities throughout is that they had no option but to comply with the statutory regulations as they are until such time as they are changed. So we've been in something of a catch-22 situation, and the position of fire and rescue authorities throughout has been that this could only be resolved by the government addressing these issues, deciding what to do about whether the regulations were compliant or not. And the recent vacation that Ian referred to on the 17th of July, I think, is in order that the fire authority position can now be considered in detail, which will, subject to that decision, hopefully mean that it will be the government that has to pick up the full costs of resolving this issue. And it's not just firefighters. There were other public sector schemes where the government has been found to be non-compliant with the law, and those schemes are also in a similar situation where matters are having to be resolved and lots of complications are arising on tax matters, etc. And it is only the government that can effectively resolve these issues. So when Ian says this could take until 2022, it won't just be as a result of delays in the legal system and the implications of COVID on hearings and delays. It's because this is almost like a Gordian knot that needs severing and untangling to put people into the right position. We can only, however, as Ian points out, respond to what government decides to do.
Thank you, Ian and Michael, for that. Are there any questions? Councillor Tully?
Not much of a question, Chair, as an observation. I thank Ian and Michael for explaining to the committee the up-to-date position, and I think we can do no more than take note of what's particularly in the report. But I think it was quite clearly said, as an authority, we didn't. The government decided at the day to mess around with the the pension system, and we will have to sort of implement their, the rules. I think, like I say, is we aren't taking it any further. Michael and both Ian have given a thorough, up-to-date situation as to where we are, and we'll just have to sit back and await and see as it progresses, as it moves forward. But it's going to take a considerable amount of time.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. I do agree with you there. Any more comments? Right then, finally. Oh. Finally, minutes of the Yorkshire and Humberside Employee Association. That's just the minutes.
Chair, that's really just for noting for members. I suppose the primary issue of interest might be the update on local government pay that's contained within there. The latest position on local government pay is a final offer has been made by the employers to the local government trade unions of 2.75%. That's now out for consultation with the unions. As I understand it, Unison and the GMB are going out for consultation with no recommendation one way or the other to their members. I understand Unite are consulting, but have advised their members to reject. The numbers in the sort of local government constitution are such that if Unison and the GMB vote in favour and Unite vote against, then the deal will be carried just through weight of numbers. But we're not really expecting an outcome on that until probably the end of August, when the consultation is complete. That does only affect our support staff, not our firefighters, who are subject to separate negotiations, and those negotiations are just about in progress. And I believe there's a consultation meeting for the chief and chair today, I think, to formulate the employer's response. Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you for that comment. Thank you very much. And thanks, everyone. Any comments from anybody else? No? Okay, well, thank you for attending this meeting this morning, and thank you for the public to be watching. Right then.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.